Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2023 Hack Summit. And we're joined now by Ilya Polosukhin, who is the co-founder of the Near protocol. And he's going to be presenting today on Near as the blockchain operating system. And they have some exciting new product innovations they've been creating. And we're excited to learn all about that. And I'm sure the developers in the audience are going to be thrilled to learn about all the new innovations in Near and to learn about how they can get involved. So Ilya, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Ed, for inviting. Great to be here.
So to start off, Ilya, I would love for the audience to just get to know you a little bit better. Maybe you can give us a little bit about your background personally and what led you to co-found Near originally, and maybe then you can go into your presentation.
For sure, yeah. I actually have a slide about my background specifically.
Oh, perfect. Let's go into that then.
Let me jump in. All right. Well, yeah. So thanks, and hello, everyone. So my background is actually in AI and machine learning research. And before co-founding Near, I was at Google Research. I was working kind of across a bunch of natural language problems and ended up being one of the co-authors of the paper called Attention is All You Need, which is kind of the basis of technology that's used right now in GPT models, in stable diffusion models called transformers. And I also was doing a lot of kind of how to turn the machine learning frameworks more developer friendly. And after I left Google, we were actually doing AI research and we were trying to build an AI product. But obviously in 2017, we were maybe I would say like $300 million less in hardware and compute. But we actually built a very interesting data collection system. And we ourselves had a challenge, which was we needed to pay people around the world. We had a lot of students working with us who were doing kind of programming tasks for us that we would use for training machines. And they were around the world. It was kind of just like logistics of paying them was very complicated for, 3-4 people startup. And so we looked at blockchain as a technology to do the global payments. And we ended up realizing that there's a lot of shortcomings. This was in 2018 around how it works, the kind of the cost structure, as well as, developer and user friendliness. And so since then, we really focused on how do we deliver kind of a blockchain that's simple, secure, and scalable. And kind of transitioning into now, the vision we have, kind of the broader vision we have, is really to build the open web, build a web where the identity, assets, data belong to the user. And there's an important part, which is the decisions as well. And this spans not just for, small decisions like, which obviously like financial apps to use, which interfaces you want to use, which blockchains you want to use, etc. But ideally allows to move a lot of the governance we have to this open web model as well. And this will be also important in kind of the future of AI as well, as I believe the governance needs to be community first. Now we have the Web 2 world, right, where data that, all of the social graph, all of the posts, everything actually belongs to the company that we use, right? If it's, your ride in Uber, if it's your tweets in Twitter, actually all belong to the company, to the service. The identity is extremely siloed, right? You have identity in Uber, identity in Lyft, identity in Twitter. They all kind of not connected. If you switch between these apps, there's no way to kind of leverage data and leverage reputation that you build. Obviously, as companies can decide on removing features, changing fees, kind of blocking accounts, doing whatever they want. And so they're removing this decision-making power. And they have, misuse of this data, leaks, etc. Like just kind of, even if company itself is not trying to be evil, just like naturally things happen. Now, we in Web3 have been talking about this for a long time, right? This is not a new premise, and kind of our current plan always been, let's build a lot of cool blockchain tech, and then something will happen and we'll have a lot of users, right? And so I put the crypto bingo, which is, if you have trustless dApp, sharding, smart contracts, tokenized ZK, you get a bingo, or you can just have a Vitalik. And like the reality is, Web3 right now is very disjointed experiences. You have this, huge fragmentation as well between the blockchains. There's a lot of pieces that not decentralized. A lot of applications are run by a single party, by a single centralized service, kind of on the front end. The identities are also still pretty distinct, and you have a lot of kind of just like not normal experiences where users who coming from the apps of Web2 just like don't find the engagement with the apps, right? Like the only way to engage is like to give airdrops or have 100% APY or more. And so what we've been introduced pretty much about a month ago is the concept of blockchain operating system. It's really kind of going beyond just what blockchains are and providing this common place where you can browse and discover open web experiences, and it's compatible with any blockchain. And so the reason why we call it operating system is to kind of relate to regular operating systems, which abstract the hardware that it runs on for the developers, and at the same time for the users, kind of they find a common layer, right, for how to find, install apps, use them, kind of they know kind of how this will work, and because of this, it creates the massive kind of distribution channel for these apps as well. So really, it's kind of creating this bi-directional system, but now in a blockchain way, in an open way. So what does it enable? Well, it's kind of three core things. One is for the users, it's a single point of entry, right? It's one place where people can come in and really onboard with like one universal account that builds up their reputation across all of the blockchains, and actually Web2 as well. It allows them to have a very easy discoverability of apps, of opportunities, of communities, kind of social interactions, etc. It's an integrated experience, right? So we're removing this fragmentation, right? You have Uniswap there, fork of it somewhere here. You have, potentially like lending protocol here, which doesn't work with this. Like all of this, should be removed. It also solves this problem of like how do you search over all of these experiences, or how do you re-engage users, right, with notifications, for example. And finally, it's a developer environment, right, which is kind of removing the need for hosting, removing for developers to build the scaffolding, set up all of the like complicated, links and libraries and APIs. And it really allows to kind of really easily fork existing applications and modify them. It works with any blockchain, any Web2 backends. It has payments and identity integrated, right? So it's better developer environment than Web2. So that's what blockchain operating system enables. So kind of looking in like how the stack looks like, right? There's kind of this layers of technologies. Obviously, we have blockchains on the bottom, this data platform, discovery, I'll mention what it is, gateways, and finally kind of wallets are not going anywhere, although they may merge with the gateway as a concept. So let's start with blockchain. So blockchains here are pretty much the back end where all of the identity assets, kind of governance votes, all of the kind of heavy lifting is happening, similarly how it is right now. And this blockchain operating system works with any blockchain, right? You can connect them in any way. We're starting with Near, Aurora, and EVMs already launched, and obviously kind of opening up, like anybody can contribute to add support for other blockchains really easily. The kind of idea is to surface these applications that they have, and at the same time, make sure there's an easy way to hook in Web2 backends, plug in API keys, all of the complicated stuff there. Now, a more interesting part is data platform. So this is what aggregates blockchain data across all of the blockchains and creates kind of a single layer of data between different applications. And the idea is to provide a convenient set of APIs optimized for specific use cases. So I'll mention later, we call it Query API, and it's idea to describe how you want the data to be indexed inside the smart contract itself. And so because of this, it's now available. Anybody can run an indexer on top of that and provide you this API, and you have kind of zero switching cost between data providers. Data platform is also where notification, search, streaming, kind of all of the machinery that you need to really build kind of rich experiences lives. And obviously transaction submission and transaction, remote accounts, kind of ability to really interact between different chains. If you have an account on Near and you need to execute something on Ethereum or the other way around, data platform again creates this abstraction for the users and developers. And so the new piece that we introduced is, we call it Discovery, and it's a composable decentralized front ends. So this is a new idea that is kind of not really possible in Web 2, because what it allows to do is this kind of turn front ends into what smart contracts kind of became, right? Just individual modules that are highly composable between each other that anybody can have access to. And so the way it's done is by storing the source code of the front end component on the blockchain itself. So, for developers, think of it as React component stored on the blockchain. And at the moment when the user wants to see, for example, a swap, it pulls that code and renders it for the user, right? So there's no middleware servers that renders a code. There's no specific front end website. It's rendered for the user based on, kind of think of it as URL that user entered. What it allows to do is now have obviously censorship resistant front ends that are upgradable with cryptography, right? So now you cannot have the situation like Curve had when things got hacked, kind of their front end. Now, the front end will be upgraded together with smart contracts potentially. For developers who come in, they can always see what the front end they're looking at actually implements, and if need to fork it or compose it, right? You can take a swap, Uniswap, for example, front end, a social feed front end, and merge them together into a social swap. And so what it turns into a better, faster kind of developer environment for front ends, not just in Web 3, but also in Web 2, because you can really quickly build up things from kind of small pieces that already exist. They're versioned, they're there. I'll kind of showcase how it looks. And finally, the gateways, right? So all of this is cool. This allows you to run kind of this front end, but you still need some place to access it, right? And so gateways is kind of this access points. They can be anything. This can be a website that kind of boots up, so what we call a viewer, and this viewer then pulls the front ends from the blockchain. This can be a browser, which just recognizes URLs directly and pulls them to RPC from a blockchain. It can be a wallet, it can be a portfolio app. So kind of the range of gateways is pretty wide, and they are the places that allow us to have this decentralized pretty much front ends as a concept, and kind of removing the single point of if this website is down, now you cannot access the front end. Now you can access it through any of these gateways, and you will see exactly the same content because, again, it pulls it from the blockchain. So and it kind of not just the front ends, the data platform, the onboarding of users, engagement, all of this comes in. And so for gateways, in a way, you're turning your application into the super app capability, right? Because you're kind of going from introducing gateway, you enabling all of this functionality. So in a way, we're building a three-sided marketplace, right? There's a gateways, which are places how people access the blockchain operating system. There are experiences, it can be everything from a small component to a big app, financial, multi, pretty much Binance experience can be built out of this fully decentralized. And it can be, finally, the third side is users, right? People who actually own their data, own their funds, and they interact through any gateway, right? You can log in through near.org, through Brave, through your wallet, and see exactly the same content, friends, social, games, your assets, financial, kind of through any of these access points. And you can easily navigate to get notifications, get all of these experiences. So one of the questions we do get now a lot is who should run gateways? And so there are two kind of audiences. One is existing apps, right? So if your existing app, you already have users, and you want to turn your app into a super app. You want to expand more functionality for your users. This can be a wallet, this can be a existing application. What it allows you to do is for free pretty much to get like tons of functionality. You don't need to support it. You don't need to kind of keep up and maintain, for example, all of the DeFi or all of the like NFT functionality that somebody builds. You kind of get these components for free. And like wallets, for example, portfolio companies are looking into this. And on the other side, if you're planning to create a more kind of zoomed in, very optimized experience, you can spin up a gateway and kind of choose which specific things you can show there, right? It can be a social network specific, it can be a ecosystem specific, like Cantopia for Canto. Alpha the Near Underdog obviously is more focused on near ecosystem community interactions. Cool. So I mentioned a lot of experiences in apps, and so this is just to kind of showcase the variety, right? So this is already all live on Blockchain Operating System. You have everything from a social feed to a multiplayer games to NFT kind of different marketplaces and interactions to financial borrowing lending market, right? So kind of a really wide variety of things, and they all kind of interact within the same interface and built in the same way. So why would you build an app, right now, especially? Well, it's censorship resistant, right? That's probably one of the biggest thing, right? We've started building a blockchain because we have this value, but the front ends are right now all actually like running under someone's name, paying with a credit card. Need to make sure that that doesn't go down. It's a lot less operational overhead, right? If you build it this way, again, don't need to pay, don't need to like maintain, make sure you have security, penetration testing, all of the stuff. And you have like a extremely easy way to kind of integrate, and over time, as more multi-chain functionality launches, you'll get all of that. Importantly, this infrastructure is to build businesses, right? So just to kind of name a few ideas, one of the ideas is just global gigs marketplace, right? Like idea is with blockchain now, what we get is extremely low operational costs, like operational business costs, and the global workforce, right? And so you can build new ways of engaging kind of people and kind of creating marketplaces. And for example, gigs and tasks is one of them, right? Think of TaskRabbit, Airbnb, like all of those things that kind of fit in the same pattern. The other one, given the rise of kind of AI, like generated content, like creating a CRM type that authenticates everything that happens, and so you can build front ends specifically for different people, for different publications, for example, content managers, using the boss, and then everything's authenticated, including the front end itself, right? So you have like a kind of full end-to-end authentication: who built everything, what's the content, who's content written by, etc. And so when users accessing it, they know exactly, like even if it is AI generated, they know that exactly. It's not replaced like on the fly, for example, and generated kind of to sway their opinion. And finally, like something that we really need now is peer-to-peer, also kind of marketplaces that allow to buy and sell physical items, right? So think eBay, Amazon, Shopify. And so this is again turning this platform that kind of the front end itself runs, it's censorship resistant, you can build on top of it, and you can start integrating. So this is just some ideas, but kind of think of it this way, like going beyond just kind of regular self-referential, financial applications, but really starting to build true businesses that actually solve problems that people have. Now, I mentioned components, and so components, again, can be everything from a smallest, so like NFT image, or in this case, it's account profile, right? It's NFT plus like, name and account name, and up to a whole app, right? And you can always, like at alpha.near.org, you can actually check which component you're looking at and view the source code, fork it, etc. It allows really quickly to like navigate to like, oh, I like this front end, I like this piece, go to source code, see which other components it uses, look at it, oh cool, I can use it in my application. So already over 2,500 components built, and like we see 100 plus kind of monthly active developers building there right now, months in. So how to build components? Well, so there is an embedded kind of editor with rendering that's available inside the alpha.near.org or Near Social or both.gg, kind of any of the gateways that's already running. You can see as you kind of building how it would render, you can modify things, you can kind of inject things, test it, etc., and you can publish from here. And so if you fork kind of component directly on the website, that's what you get. The alternative is obviously, like, as you start building more and more complex systems, that kind of breaks down. And so there's a VS Code plugin and a command line tool that syncs everything to your local folder. And so you can use GitHub, and the VS Code plugin allows you to render stuff as well from local. So kind of allows to really, both local development and kind of cloud in-browser development directly on the blockchain. So all of this, like all the development, when you do kind of publish, it actually records right on chain. And so you have the version history of this. And so as a developer, you can always bind version history of the components you depend on to make sure that as they get upgraded, they don't break you, for example, or don't maliciously attack you. And again, as a user, you can always fork off a previous version. If you say like, hey, I don't like whatever is going on here, right? Like Square updated front end again, I don't like that. I want to use kind of the version they had before. So kind of the control is like in users and developers' hands always. So kind of experiences and kind of just to name a few core, well, one of the big ones is social, right? At the end, like we are kind of social creatures, and social allows to really create this engagement. And the boss comes with so-called social DB, which has social graph, likes, now reposts. It uses a kind of performant indexer to create feed, and it can be customized for different use cases, right? You can kind of subquery it and create communities. You can subquery it into specific apps. And so the idea is really to give this kind of what is a primitive, really, social graph and enable it to all the applications. So here's another example. I mentioned Social Swap is really taking a Uniswap app and expanding it with a social feature, right? And so the idea here, you take the Uniswap apps that use Ethereum, you take a social feed that actually uses Near chain underneath, and you combine them into one front end, right? Combining these two components, and kind of you let the blockchain operating system to figure out, like, if users coming in with MetaMask or with Near Wallet, which transactions should be routed where. So kind of really creating this abstraction layer for developers and users, so they don't need to think about like, oh, this part is here, this part is there. Just clone those components or write the code, and let the system figure out. Now there's some obviously atomicity requirements, etc., that developers will need to think about, but kind of generally speaking, that's a goal, is like really abstracted out. And so another example is as you're building games, right? For example, there's a lot of NFT content on Ethereum, but it's really hard to unlock it anywhere else. And so the idea here is like you can really easily, as user logged in with MetaMask, they can use their NFTs from Ethereum inside a game, and the leaderboard is on Near. And so kind of you have ways to discover those games and kind of engage people, and obviously both how are you doing. And so kind of the idea is like really combining these different chains and different pieces like of content and functionality, and creating new experiences that are rich and empowering user. Cool. So just to wrap up, obviously there's a lot of like kind of blockchain operating system is a huge project, and we've been working a lot on kind of getting the alpha out, which was for East Denver, and there's still a lot of functionality coming in the future. So I'll just walk through some of the core pieces. One of them is fast auth. So fast auth is this idea that right now we still in many times require users to get seed phrase and figure out all of the complexity of cryptography before signing and trying out the applications. And so fast auth really is using the cryptography available now on the phones. It's using the new standard called passkey, and it allows to really quickly create an account, with cryptography, and set up email recovery and get you going and start to use the applications. And so this is going to be launching in coming months. And so with that also, we are launching many transactions on the protocol level of near chain, and kind of building infrastructure around this to let these people now to use different applications without needing to pay transaction fees. Right. So again, think of it as trial mode. You start using applications, you sign up with a Face ID or fingerprint, and you can start posting, liking, maybe interacting with some things. And only when you need to like swap, for example, or doing something financial, you need to on-ramp money. It also allows to switch away from this idea that like right now you need to pay transaction fees per each transaction to maybe have a subscription model, right? Wallets, for example, can charge you some number of dollars per month and offer you a whole set of services, including paying for the real transaction fees. So really improves accessibility for end users and kind of gives developers a lot more flexibility. So I mentioned Query API, right? So Query API is this abstraction interface that really kind of allows developers to define the schema of the data they want to index from a blockchain, define kind of the indexing code, push it on a blockchain, and then have an API now to use it from any of the indexer services available in the ecosystem. And so, think of it as a graph, but like embedded into the smart contracts. And so this is really about like enabling zero switching costs for APIs as well for this data platform common service. So I mentioned search a few times because it is a huge enabler for discovery, right? Right now, if you want to search kind of for applications, like you need to Google, you need to like DAppRadar, and like you need to understand what's going on there. And so here you have like an ability to search across applications, posts, content, all of those things, and then right away kind of navigate, see how they work, and interact with them. Similarly, notifications is extremely important to engage users and get them to come back to do things, and obviously there's set of permissions that's required to do that. And so now actually with new launch of iOS, they support push notifications from the browser, and so now you can actually have push notifications from this app, obviously email and Telegram as well. Again, for developers, one of the important things is to really quickly develop things and make sure that users are able to understand how things work. And so in Web 2, there was two huge enablers around this: Bootstrap library and material design. They enabled really the developers a kind of a really easy way of well-researched components that they can just use and get like a reasonable front end going right away. And so what we're going to be launching is this design system that allows developers to do this as well. In Web3, it kind of comes with a whole set of components: how to manage accounts, how to manage kind of show an account name, all of those things that like Web3 needs, and really bootstrap how you build. I mentioned kind of there's already a commit history for components. There's, you can navigate. More things are launching within that as well. So pull request is one big kind of request, pun intended. As like you're building components, somebody forked it, they want to actually contribute it back. And similarly, issue management and kind of discussions about this. And then analytics, right? We so frequently in Web3 now use Web2 analytics, right? Which, does not really respect user privacy, does not understand, cryptography, like that is transactions being signed, private keys exist, etc. And so the idea here is to bring kind of analytics as a module that allows now developers to kind of understand the usage of their components while still preserving the identity, PII, etc. of the users and kind of not leaking it. Few more features. I'll just go quicker as we're over time. Instant experiences is really ability to send somebody a link and they receive money, create an account, all of this without needing to ever know about wallets, etc. Everything on chain. Tickets as an example. Check it out at keepon.xyz. Similarly, idea trial accounts. You can actually like send somebody a trial account with already preloaded set of money and functionality and limit it to specific actions. So like, hey, you can trade on Ref Finance and spend $10, for example, and when it's done, or if you make more, you can repay me and kind of get it back. And one more important piece is moderation, right? So we opening up, it's a blockchain operating system. We opening it up. At the core, there's a censorship resistant, obviously, blockchains, but we still want a constructive community. We still want people to really be friendly to each other and kind of constructive. And so we want a community first moderation, right? So different gateways can kind of decide how they want to moderate the content, and the users themselves can decide what things they don't want to see and kind of what things should be flagged. So we're trying to make all blockchains usable. It's universal accounts. It's really handling this identity management. It's experiences. It's really connecting with all the wallets, and it's really focusing on how do we remove centralized choke points from the ecosystem. So just to kind of finish the thought, Near is not just a blockchain. It's all of these different things, and kind of the way we describe them is blockchain operating system. And there's a lot of questions probably here.
Yeah, thank you, Ilya. That was a great presentation. We have time for maybe one question from the audience, and then I have a question for you as well. You can feel free to answer any of the questions that you'd like here, Ilya, on the list on the right. Is there one that in particular that calls out to you?
One sec. All right, so there's a question, why should I choose to build over BOS versus building own infrastructure? And so that's a really great question. The idea for the BOS is really to create kind of, on one side, abstraction, so you don't need to roll out your own infra. You don't need to think about, ideally, even a lot of the blockchain kind of details. And then on the other side, create kind of this distribution funnel, right? To have users coming in and re-engaging, etc. And so you can build all of this functionality yourself. It's just going to be like 10 to 100 times more expensive to really build engaging experience. Create all this functionality from scratch, and then you're not getting the network effects that the system is targeted at, right? When you have kind of more gateways bringing more users who using more apps, who then bring more users, etc.
We have time probably for one more question, and I also have a question for you of my own.
For sure, yeah. I had a great panel on ZK. Can you comment if Near BOS will enable ZK as primitive in the future? So I'll mention one thing. I actually can maybe link to for everyone here. So we have a developer governance in Near, which is really focused on how to foster a kind of constructive and creative developer ecosystem. And I'll link it here. They're actually using the BOS, the blockchain operating system, already to build their kind of governance system. And one of the biggest things is they have this discussion / community / ideation / sponsorship platform where they're doing all of this work. And so Zero Knowledge is actually one of the bigger communities here, which they meet every week. They discuss a bunch of things. There's kind of a community group and work group and making specific decisions. There's projects being built like the bridging technology, the compression of the light client, and private transactions, et cetera. So definitely there's a lot of work happening, and it's using blockchain operating system to do this work, but also it will be all rolled in as these things are launching into blockchain operating system.
Fantastic. And then the last question from me is, if you have I'm just curious as a developer, if you have a front-end component that's kind of Web3 enabled as part of the blockchain operating system, does that front-end component actually run on-chain, or is it running off-chain? And are there any performance considerations there?
Yeah, so the component is front-end. So front-ends run in browsers of the user. The component source code is stored on blockchain. And so we're using a hack, which is we store it in the in the state, but we only store the last version. So all the versions are kind of stored in the history. And similarly, like this is used for like social and other interactions. And
so it's almost a decentralized alternative to GitHub almost for having versions.
That's why it's pull requests and issues are coming. Yes.
That is pretty sweet.
Decentralized, links into your like blockchain identity. You can actually get like you can build financial models around that. So there's like a ton of interesting innovation that can happen there.
That is awesome. I love the vision. Well, thank you, Ilya. We learned a lot today. Really inspired by your vision for the blockchain operating system. Thanks for teaching us today. Developers, please go to Ilya's link there in the chat if you'd like to learn more and start building on Near. It's very easy to use and very, very developer-friendly platform. And thanks again, Ilya, for making a difference for the charities and being here today.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks everyone for listening.